This is Talk the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. We have a very special episode coming your way today. Andy and Laurie are here, but far more important than that, there's a big build-up written in front of me on the running order. We don't need it. Bryan Robson's here. Hello, Bryan.
Morning, Joe. Thanks for the invite.
I feel like I should clap then, you know.
It's absolutely incredible to have you here, so thank you so much for being here. People will know you, obviously, for the glorious years you had as a Manchester United player. We'll talk to you about that, all the things you won, all the things you achieved. We'll talk to you about the modern team, if that's all right, the modern midfield, Michael Carrick, and also some of the work that you've been doing to help some of the young players at Manchester United as well, which is very, very important work. But Andy, how important is this man in the history of Manchester United?
Hugely important. In the 1980s, he was Manchester United's best player. He was the best English player. He was a hero to a lot of Manchester United fans, similar age to me and a little bit older. When I interviewed Diego Maradona, he picked out two British players, and one of them was Brian and the other was Graham Souness, who was another great midfielder. And it was difficult at times in the 1980s watching Manchester United because Liverpool were winning everything. But if you had Brian in your team, I think he was a player every fan dreamed, thinking they could be if they were ever a player.
Not the FA Cup.
No, the FA Cup. I mean, him at Main Road against Liverpool in the semi-final replay, he just ran away from Ronnie Whelan.
I'm not sure. Was it not Mark Lawrenson was trying to catch me?
One of the best goals you've ever seen.
Probably.
Just absolute smasher. So
Favourite goal.
Is it of all time?
Yeah.
Why,
Especially
Bryan?
with it being against Liverpool.
Well, true, at Main Road as well.
We were 1-0 down, and we went on to win the game, but then we beat Everton in the final. So it meant something because scoring your best goal for United and then going on to win the FA Cup, at least you've achieved something on your best goal.
Yeah. How do you reflect on your time with the club? It's a big question, I suppose, a very open one.
No, it was fantastic. You know, the atmosphere at Old Trafford, playing for a big club. And the reason why I left West Brom was to win things. And so that's why it was great to go to United and you started winning things. You know, and so that's important to players, that you win things in your career.
My brother, who's like a functional, successful human with a family, the picture on his WhatsApp phone is of Brian in 1985. So Brian's currently taking legal action for using his image. But he just made people of a generation who was even in for England as well. And I remember him, he got one or two injuries, is that fair to say? And you'd be like,
going there.
We're not going to go too far deep.
No, well, I get a lot of publicity about that. 82 went really well for me. But 86, I went in with a dislocated shoulder. So it was really disappointing when it came out again in the second game. So that's me missing the World Cup. But in 1990, we won the FA Cup and I went into the World Cup feeling really good. And then second game against Holland, I snapped my Achilles tendon. So that was another World Cup that I missed. So it was important games and competitions. And that's why everybody goes, you were injured a lot. But me and Viv Anderson, we had a bet once and we counted up all the games that we played in. And I beat them by 3 because it was like I'd played about 870 games. Wow. He said I couldn't include England games. And I went, yeah, that's right.
Could you include the ones when you picked yourself as a player manager? Was that the 3 at the end?
Yeah. Obviously put them in.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was 3 games.
Yeah. The manager picked you, didn't he?
Yeah.
870, that's a lot.
That's a lot, isn't it?
That's huge. And on that game at Main Road, Ron Atkinson says that's his favourite game, or one of his favourite games, certainly. He picks that one out because of the comeback, the opposition, as you say there. I think there was an amusing story about Liverpool accidentally subbing Kenny Dalglish when there was a miscommunication from the stands.
Yeah, that's right as well. I don't know who they were supposed to be taking off, but they did take Kenny off and we all went, well happy with that. Kenny going off.
But the game against Barcelona, I think, is the one that stands out for a lot of people. Your contribution to making it through in that tie. And I know it didn't then end up in Cup Winners' Cup success in that period, but I do wonder what your reflections on that game and what it meant to you. But also then 1991, taking on Barcelona again, was there any kind of memory of that game and what it meant and how to beat them?
No, I can't remember any of those games. But though in the first game, we got beat 2-0 at Barcelona. So to come back and turn it round was brilliant. And that is the best atmosphere I've ever witnessed at Old Trafford. So for that reason, you remember the game. The game went really well for us, though, because, we got 2 goals back and Ron said, don't go and overplay and over-attack because we don't want them scoring a goal now.
Goal was still a big thing back then, wasn't it?
Yeah. When Frank Staten scored the winner, honestly, we were out on our feet the last 10 minutes and they had a couple of chances which just went wide. But yeah, it was a great night, winning, going into the semi-final. Unfortunately, though, there was quite a few of us got injured and we didn't play in the Juventus game. But the lads put up a great fight against Juventus and only got beat 1-0. And Juve at the time had Platini and they had like 8 of the Italian national team playing in that team. So the boys put up a good fight, but weren't just quite good enough to win it. But then 91, when we go to Rotterdam, we go 2-0 up through Sparky scoring 2. Brucey will always tell me that he got the second, but
it's a good story.
Unfortunately for Brucey, it wasn't quite over the line. But yeah, so it was great to win that. The atmosphere on that night was brilliant because it was a horrible night and it was drizzling rain and the atmosphere was great. But when we walked out to do the warm-up, 2/3 of the stadium was Man United fans.
One of them was him, right?
Barcelona.
Yeah. One of them was Andy.
We went last year, didn't we? We went to Rotterdam last year.
Yeah,
we
did.
A film about it.
It was good that just to have photos, and it was a shoot for Adidas.
Yeah. And he's still got all the merch, he's got all the gear.
My dad talks about the bucket seats that the fans had. I don't think anyone sat down in the game, mainly because it was exciting, but also because these bucket seats were just covered in water. There's like puddles in everyone's seat. No one could sit down. So
yeah, but when we went back that time, I couldn't believe how small the dressing room and the showers were. Really poor. But then one of the other things I remember about that game and the trip, United took over the hotel and we had the best after party ever. It's the best party I've been to.
What time singing?
Yeah. What time did you go to bed the night after Rotterdam? Did you go to bed?
It was one of them where it got to 3:00. My wife came across, and Maureen, Brian's wife at the time, they both came across and said, "You two, bed now." I got, we'll just have one for the road. And anyway, at 8:00 in the morning, the lifts come open and 2 oldish people came out. It was one of the lads' mums or dads. And they came out and I went to Chalky, you go and get 6 jugs of orange juice. I'll get this champagne in. And everybody's having Bucks Fizz for breakfast.
Perfect.
But then 8:00, the girls came down again. You two, now get upstairs and get packed for the trip back home. But anyway, so we hadn't been to sleep. We have the trip back and the open top bus going around everywhere in Manchester, Salford, the lot. We're on our way back and we stopped off at Mulligan's in the Marriott Hotel, and it was about 2:00 we left. So it's one of them, you sleep probably 20 hours before the game, but then you can't get to sleep. So it was about 48 hours before I got to bed again.
That was the night that Brian McClare told Mick Hucknall, who was there, that he'd peaked as an artist the following year. Mick's album Stars was the best-selling album in Europe, so McClare hid for him for the next 12 years. That Barcelona game, I interviewed Maradona, and he said, I've been to Manchester, I should have had a penalty there. And I said, well, I know Brian Robson, and I'm going to ring him now. And you went, it's not a penalty. It wasn't a penalty for the Barcelona. Before the Leeds game, Angus Loughran came up to me, Stato, and just started talking about the Barcelona game and said, they should have had a penalty. I said, well, this is disputed. Brian Robson claims it wasn't a penalty. And he said, well, how would Brian know? He was at the other side of the pitch. I was in K-stand right where it took place.
How would he know? He was in the back row. Andy wears glasses.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that 91 Winners' Cup success like gave you the belief to go on and finally win the league after 26 years, and then for United to become what it has become today? It feels like such a pivotal moment. I know the FA Cup win before that was key.
That's the thing that gets mentioned more than anything, actually.
But then beating Barcelona, that Barcelona team, Johan Cruyff, they went on to win the European Cup the next year. To give you that belief, I don't know, is that real? Am I reaching there, or is that something significant?
No, for me, because the boss had brought in people like Big Polly, Neil Webb, people like that, Incy. When we won the FA Cup, I think then that took us on, because we won the Rumbelow Cup, as it was called then. And then the European Cup Winners' Cup, but then the first Premier League title for me was, obviously, everybody loved it because it was the first Premier League, and in 92, 93. And we won it. Nobody can take that away from you, that you were the first team to win the Premier League. But then to do the double the next year, obviously it went on. But I always say to Sir Alex when I'm at the racing with him, I'll always go to him, when you let me go, Gaffer, I was really disappointed, because after winning the double, I thought you might have given me one more year. And anyway, he goes, no, I had to bring the young lads through. He says, so I had to get you old ones out. And I said, yeah, okay, I can understand that. I says, but, in 95, I says, but did you win anything? I can't quite remember. And then I go, because I won the championship with Boro. And he slapped me around the head.
Did he actually?
Typical Alex.
Yeah, okay.
I love to slap you around the head.
I think that's you winning the argument then, isn't it? I mean, and also just on the class of 92, because that was that period where he's sort of saying, I've got to bring the kids through. Yeah. And Nicky, but I was with him recently, and he was saying that your influence, as well as Steve Bruce, as well as Gary Pallister, but the environment that they entered into was the perfect storm.
Hell of a dressing room, that, by the way.
So, and then that laid the foundations for a decade or more of dominance for United.
It's a lot of strong characters in that group, isn't there? I mean, even meeting them now, you feel that. I don't know what they were like as competitors, as players.
Honestly, there was about 6 captains in that team, starting with Schmeichs, because Schmeichs would just give it that all the time. I mean, somebody had hit a shot from 35 yards and he'd go, close them down. And you go, it's 35 yards out, just catch a frigging ball. But then you talk about Brucey, even Incy in midfield, Roy Keane, the captain material. Then you got Sparky up front. So like you say, there was a lot of good, strong characters. And for the kids coming through, I mean, Giggsy didn't really come through because he'd had 2 years with us, where the other lads, they'd been on the bench, they were part of the squad now and again. So they learned a lot when you talk to them all. They always remember all the lads who looked after them as they were coming through as kids. And you look at them, all of them deserve to be top internationals and top players, and they won everything.
Was there a point when you ever doubted the future at United. I mean, I'll talk to you about Bruno Fernandes a little bit later. We've talked a lot on the podcast about some of the similarities between him being the best player in this team and this team challenging for things, but maybe not being at the very, very top level that Manchester United have had across their history. Was there ever a point where you thought about something else? Because there was Italian links around the time of that Juventus game that you mentioned earlier as well.
Yeah, there was. I mean, Juventus, Sampdoria, and Milan were after me.
Is that all?
But I mean, the Italian league at that time was a place to go if you wanted to earn really big money. So it was a bit like that. But I'd got settled into Manchester. My kids had just started going to school. And the wife loved it in Manchester because she'd been nowhere else apart from Birmingham. So it worked out well because they came in, Juve, and offered, I think it was $2.25 million. But Maradona had gone from Napoli to Barcelona for $3 million. So Martin Edwards sort of got it in his head, I want $3 million for him.
This is like 200 million in today's money for any of the kids watching, basically. Isn't it? This is mega, mega money.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how much it would be, but
it's a world record fee. Yeah, I guess at that stage.
It was, yeah.
Because you were a record at 1.9, weren't you, in 1981?
Yeah. So that happened where Martin said that he wanted $3 million. So when Juventus said, no, we've went to our limit, I went into Martin Edwards and Ron, and I just went, if you're classing me at $3 million, I want a new 7-year contract.
Smart.
And so I got the 7-year contract, which took me to, 10 years at the club. And obviously that was beneficial because you don't have testimonials now. But when you had a testimony at that time, it was tax-free, and so it was great. And I've always got to thank the Celtic fans as well as the Man United fans because Celtic brought 20,000 fans down. Wow. They brought down and made it a great atmosphere as well. The only thing was they got up at the end of the game and they're jumping up and down, but they were jumping up and down on the seats. So it cost me money, about 190 seats I had to replace.
Did you have to pay for them as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
I knew it on the pitch. It's the only time I've been on the pitch at Old Trafford. Everyone ran on the pitch at the end.
Is that right? Yeah.
Really.
Barcelona, you didn't.
Yeah. I wasn't there.
Pitch.
That's my. I could hear the game.
I thought you were a proper.
I was.
Disgusting.
Exposing him.
It is. Not going.
He's going to claim he's allowed by his parents.
Well.
We've heard this story. Come on, Andy.
10. I was devastated. And the game in Turin, listening to it on Piccadilly Radio, just absolutely devastated to go out of that competition. But yeah, my missed and most regretted is that Barcelona game. But I was a kid. As an adult, it's Montpellier away in 91.
Oh, yeah.
Why that one? I've not heard this one.
Blackmore scored a great goal.
Yeah, because when you're 17, everything's perfect. And
true, yeah.
I was going and the lad I was going with pulled out. But I didn't miss one from then onwards. But
well, at least you thought of a good excuse to get to Rotterdam anyway. And I know you said this on a different platform, so I'll leave it there maybe. But, managing to get some fraudulent letter to get you out
Barcelona
school.
Game, I'm sure, I think our capacity then was 54,000 and all the stewards, I think, made a few quid because people were giving them a tenner so then they can climb over the turnstile. And I'm sure there was about 60,000 in the stadium that night.
People were on the floodlights, weren't they? They said it was 58.
They were climbing up.
You could hear the noise in the pitch or something like that I've heard.
I know, like I say, it's best atmosphere I've ever heard. And
I could hear it in Urmston, seriously.
The fans really played their part because, like I said before, we were out on our feet and they kept us going.
I'm just thinking, you're a trendsetter then with your 7-year contract. Chelsea have got nothing on you. these new long-term contracts that they're putting out. You were the first to do it.
Yeah, but I'd like to have been on the 300,000 a week. Me and the missus would find it very difficult to spend that. Or my missus would.
7 years of that is not bad, is it? Let's talk about Bruno if we can. I mentioned him to you a moment ago. I mean, undoubtedly, he's the star of the current Manchester United team. How good do you think he is?
No, he's a top-class player. I mean, the assists he has, the goals he's scored for United. But a few years ago, when he took over the captaincy, I think he encourages the team all the time. So he's got a great attitude around the training ground. He's got a great attitude. He's always polite to people, smile on his face, so he enjoys his football. And that's a big part of it, having that camaraderie on the training ground. And Bruno is very good at that.
Would he have got in your team?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had some class players, but, when you're successful in the cup competitions, you've got to have a really good squad. And you look at Bruno, the managers have never left him out.
No, true.
Because he's really fit lad. He gets about the park and he's a big influence on the team. So he would have got in at certain stages. I know he plays a little bit like Cantona. That's his best position. So Eric wouldn't have been happy if he'd been on the bench from even one game.
Really?
Yeah. But Alex has always been brilliant at that, rotating his squad. The job he did with the 4 strikers, Sheringham, and Coley and that, he did brilliant. Changing them around when somebody was maybe out of form, he'd change it, and Solskjaer come on, Yorkie, and so he kept them all happy, and that's really difficult to do when you're a manager. Keep everybody happy if you're not playing them.
You're going to be modest, I'm sure, but we talk about that Manchester United team. Andy tells us about that Manchester United team that you were a part of through the 80s, and you were someone who elevated the club, elevated the team that you played in, the players around you. And we say similar things about Bruno Fernandes. I wonder, from your perspective of being through that, what is it like being the standout player that everyone looks to, who takes that responsibility week on week?
No, I didn't look at it like that, because to be a successful team, all the lads have got to be decent players, and you're going to have maybe fans' favourites and that type of thing.
You were the leader, though, weren't you, of that group?
Yeah. But, that's just because of the way I played. So I'd always been, right from when I was a kid, I knew I had to be really fit if I was going to achieve anything. And so my fitness levels were pretty good and I could keep going. But then because of the tackling, the fans, they feel that you're showing passion and everything. But, when I first came to United, Stevie Coppell, Ray Wilkins, Frank Stapleton, all these lads were great players. And then, you had Kevin Moran and Gordon McQueen as centre-halves, who, Gordon is probably the best defensive header of a ball that I've seen. And I always thought it was funny with Big Gordon, because we were doing corners this time, Ron Atkinson saying, need you to do this, do that, and change your run and all this. And Gordon said, no, I'll make this really simple. Just put it on my head and I'll knock it down for everybody.
Well, that's what happened against Barcelona, right?
Yeah.
Flick on. I know it wasn't Gordon McQueen, but you're tapping in.
Big Frank.
Yeah.
And I always had to get on the end of it. And for me, that was one of my parts of timing of the run to get in the box to score goals. I even go back to the 82, the quickest goal in World Cup history at that time. But that's a long throw. Terry Butcher flicks it on and I got on the end of it. So I was not bad at reading that sort of side of the game to get yourself goals.
It's funny how things come around in cycles, isn't it? Now, obviously,
long throws.
Yeah, that's sort of like the fashion this season, isn't it? Sort of set pieces and getting it in from all angles.
It is a big part of the game, as we've seen sort of from last season to this season. And Arsenal are very good at it, but there's quite a few teams now very good at that. And, you've got to defend well in today's game if you're not going to concede goals from set plays.
Andy?
Remember the France 27 seconds, you got another goal, but you played with some amazing characters in that team as well. Other top players, the ones you've mentioned for Manchester United, lads like Arnold Muren, but John Gidman, just lads who would make you laugh out loud. And I think you were best friends with Gordon McQueen, weren't you? The stories they told.
Yeah, I was.
I didn't know how you had time to play football together. Because
Gordon was a character and a half. And then Moran. I mean, people keep talking about, the drinking culture with Norm Whiteside, Paul McGrath and myself. And how Kevin Moran and Gordon McQueen didn't get in this conversation. I mean, Kevin was an ox who could drink Guinness for fun. But there were solid lads and great characters, strong-minded. And we were a bit unfortunate for me in that 80s, in the middle 80s, because Liverpool still had a great team. And the thing I always looked at Liverpool, they never seemed to get an injury, where we got quite a few. I mean, Norman had his knee problems, Big Paul did, and then I got injured a few times. And in 85, when we won the first 10 games, we really thought that was our time to win the title. But then all of a sudden, John Gidman broke his leg at Ipswich. Gordon Strachan dislocated his shoulder down at West Brom. Paul had a problem with his knee again. And then I played for England. And when I look back, I still can't believe what I was doing. And we were 5-0 up against Turkey. And I went running to the far post to try and get a header in. I should have been nowhere near. I should have been on the halfway line, just sitting in front of the two centre halves. And I went there and I snapped my hamstring quite badly. And so then all those players came out the team. And then eventually Sheffield Wednesday, they beat us 1-0. And that was the end of the run. And then from then to Christmas, we just kept losing points. And unfortunately, we didn't take advantage of winning those first 10 games.
Just when you were saying earlier about the anticipation and having that ability in the box being an important thing, Casemiro just sprung into my mind. I know you've been quite complimentary about him. He scored against Leeds, and finding space against when you were man down is kind of a pretty impressive quality. Obviously, Bruno's putting the ball in as well. I think he's assisted his last 6 goals, all been headers, which is a crazy kind of synergy that they've got. Yeah, what do you make of Casemiro, and then how important do you think that will be for United to find someone that can replace that? Because I think he's got 8 Premier League goals this season now, which is a lot.
Well, you look at what he did for Real Madrid. You know, that team was a fantastic team and they won that many Champions Leagues. So you've got to be a quality player to be in that team all the time. And so when he came to us, the first thing I noticed, brilliant reader of the game, tough, good in the air, but what a great passer he is. You know, when sometimes people, when you receive a ball from square, they don't see what's there, you know, for the forwards. But Casemiro sees it all the time, you know, where he turns the ball around the corner, and it gives the forwards so much more encouragement when players do that rather than going back, sideways. You know, he is very good at passing it forward, like Bruno is.
Mm. Well, you said that you would have liked to have played with Casemiro. Why was that?
Just, I think he's a class player. And for me, he needs legs around, and that's the only sort of downfall for Casa.
That's the stage he's at as well, isn't it, to be fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if he had more pace, he would have been one of the best players in the world, you know, because of all the other attributes I've talked about. But I would like to have played with him because he was a bit like Ray Wilkins. When I ran forward, Ray Wilkins would always pick me out, or he'd hit the forward and then the forward would lay it off to you. And I think Casemiro's got that asset in his game.
So when you were saying earlier, when you watch it, you see the midfield, the certain aspects of the game that maybe people that haven't played the game wouldn't necessarily appreciate. You obviously go to a lot of games and you still see United now. What is it like to watch a game now? You know, you pick it up on these little bits, but also not being involved must be.
Look, there's nothing like playing, but I had 12 years as a manager, and so you appreciate the great players that you've sort of managed. But then it's also about trying to get your players who are not quite as skillful but hardworking, and you just try to make them a better player as an individual and then put them together. So I look at that as management, not quite as good as being a player though. And you'll never take over being a player. But now in my ambassador role at United, you'll still sit in the stand and you look and you assess all the players, because it's in your blood to be a player and a manager and a coach. But the ambassador role, it's not 24 hours a day, every day of the week. And that's why when I came back from Thailand, I decided that I'd sooner do the ambassador role, so then I had more time with the family, and that's why I made the decision that I made.
While we've got you, Brian, and we're on the subject of the current midfield, Kobbie Mainoo is the next player that's broken through into the team. Obviously, he's been missing with an injury recently, and it looked like United really did miss him. He has an ability to progress the ball that it doesn't feel like a lot of the others do through that middle section. His physical attributes have maybe been questioned a bit, but in terms of his on-the-ball ability and his creativity in that role, I mean, what do you see as his best attributes, and how do United find in the transfer market in the summer the right sort of things to complement him?
Well, I just look back at the FA Cup final against City.
Yeah.
And Kobbie was outstanding in that game. Now, for it to be a big game and playing against class players, I thought he managed it really well. And you're going, right, he's going to kick on next year, like with the confidence that he got from that. And then unfortunately, all that year, he was injured quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he just lost the edge off his game. But Anaheim didn't really, I think, trust him in that centre midfield. But then Michael come in and he's looked, well, he's got great ability. He looks fit again. And the first couple of games, he just didn't quite have that sharpness of playing week in, week out. But then when he left him in there for a long run, then all of a sudden Kobbie came through and he was back to really good form. But I think the experience of Casemiro helped him a lot. But he can be a top player. But yeah, if Casemiro does leave, then I feel that we've still got to maybe sign a couple of players in that centre of midfield, to have the balance of the squad, and especially if we go into the Champions League.
That feels like, I mean, they're looking at two, certainly, to try and make that, a key area. Obviously, Elliot Anderson is one that they're looking at, from the northeast as well, like yourself. I don't know if you've got any. If I'm allowed to press you on names that you might quite like to see. Well,
United. you've got Gaza, you've got Michael Carrick, Anderson, myself.
You ready?
So there's good Geordie for centre midfield.
Why does this area produce so many people in this position?
When you go over, because everybody says about the northeast, and when you've got like Shearer and people like that as
Bobby
well,
Charlton's.
and Brucey. But yeah, Bobby Charlton, Jack Charlton. So there's always quality players up there, and you just hope that when your scouts see these players, you actually capture them. So you do have that up in the northeast. But yeah, I mean, Anderson is one that'll definitely be on the chart. Wharton down at Palace, he would. But the thing is, you can have the people who you want to bring into your club, but sometimes the transfer fee is going to be massive, or the clubs just don't want to sell. I mean, I look at Tonali at Newcastle, and we've been linked with them quite a bit at United. A club like Newcastle, who've got loads of money, they get full houses, 60,000 every game. Do they really want to lose a player like that? Because then they've got to replace him. A bit like Bruno with us.
Yeah. They did want a fortune, and they paid a fortune for him. He's the most expensive Italian player ever, and there's a knock-on fee if they were to sell him. So it's not even in their interest to sell him. Yes, it's just for daft money.
And finding that complement is so important, right? So obviously the characteristics that you had complemented Ray Wilkins nicely, as you were saying earlier, and then Casemiro and Kobbie seem to complement each other. Certainly Casemiro, I think, thinks very highly of Kobbie, and they talk to each other. But yeah, just getting that complement between the two midfielders, right? 'Cause it's such a crucial area of the pitch for United.
I think centre of midfield is, because really you've got to get forward and score goals, but you've got to get the balance right with your partner in there, whether you play a 3 or whether you play a 2. You've got to get that balance right, because one of the centre midfield players has always got to help out the two centre halves. So you've got to try and get that balance right. And when I had Arnold Muir and Ray and myself, because Arnold didn't really want to play wide left, but he'd always drift that way because he had a fantastic left foot. But that's why when I first came to United, I scored a lot of goals, because I had Arnold Muir on one side and Ray the other side, and they were great at passing you out when you ran forward.
Is it true that you gave away the penalty to Arnold Muir in the FA Cup final when you were on a hat-trick, or was it never even a conversation?
No, it wasn't. Well, it got to be a little bit of a conversation, because Ray, when I fell on the ball and I just left the ball there, Ray picked the ball up, and because I'd scored 2, he went, well, and with 3-0 up,
yeah,
he threw the ball at me, and I just handed it to Arnie, because if we were 1-0 down, he never missed a pen. And so I'm thinking, if we were 1-0 down, would I want to take the pen? And so that's why I went, there you go, you've never missed. Otherwise, if we were 1-0 down, I might have got a bollocking.
Yeah. But do you not regret that?
No, not really, because I won the FA Cup.
Yeah. You'd have won it 3-0 even if you missed, though.
Well, yeah.
You're making me think about this now.
Yeah, sorry.
There is that way of looking at it, but yeah, it wasn't about my personal glory. It was about winning with the team, and winning my first major trophy, because I'd won promotion with West Brom.
Yeah,
but you still class the Premiership when they're all involved. You class that is a real major medal. And that's what I did in '83 when I won the first FA Cup, first medal.
You lead teams, and I need to ask you about what it was like climbing a mountain with Andy Mitten in terms of leading people and needing to G people up, hand over penalties to people, I don't know.
Look,
what was it actually like?
Well, I'd done it 11 years earlier.
Without him, though, right?
Yeah, without him. But
a lot easier that way.
I found that one a doddle.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to drag him and John Shields from the Man United Foundation, like, a harness on you, and you've got to pull the two of them up.
Yeah.
It was
Albatross Andy Mitten.
But no, I can't hammer him like that, because,
come on, please.
You can if you like.
Yeah.
After every day and every walk, even my daughter, who lives in Australia, she was tenting with me, and she went on it as well with us. She got, Dad, another interview. How's he got the breath to sort of interview you after walking up this mountain.
Told me off at one point.
Every single day.
Charlotte, his daughter.
Stop asking him questions.
But we had to get as much publicity to raise money. How much? We raised 150 grand, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Brilliant. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well,
Absolutely
that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
because the Man United Foundation do great work within the community, and that's what it was all about. As well as, I'd say to everybody, if you really feel that you're up to it, it's a great experience. I mean, the views when you're sort of getting halfway up the mountain, then when you get to the top, it's amazing, as long as you get good weather. And fortunately, twice I've done it, the weather's been perfect for going up there.
He was 67, and you could see his leadership skills, what he'd had as a player, because there were people half my age, let alone half his age, and some of them were competent climbers, but mentally, the final day is really tough. So the toughest 24 hours of my life.
Because of the altitude.
Midnight. Yeah, you're walking for like 19 hours, and you're really high as well. And near the top, I just saw his sort of leadership skills. There's no way he was not getting to the top. But it was also nice to see his relationship with one of his daughters, Charlotte, but also one of the lads who played under him, Keith. Like really close mates. Keith played under him at Middlesbrough. So to see that interaction and spend a lot of time doing it, we had a really good group of people from all different backgrounds. And I think his ankles were like, he was showing me his ankles at night. And I was like, how on earth are you walking, let alone up a mountain? But
you were saying before we started recording, though, that coming down was worse for you, Brian.
Yeah, I mean,
pressure.
going up, you don't really put pressure on your knees or your ankles because your thighs are taking it all. But coming down, you're opening your joints up. And so it was agony coming down for the one day. But you've just got to get through it. But yeah, it was great because Andy, when we were at the peak, we got there and they have this area where you've got to take a photo, but everybody's only allowed to be up there for 15 minutes and then you've got to get off. But there's other people coming up onto the top of the mountain and he's interviewing me, and it's an interview. And our Charlotte went, Andy, can you finish that?
She told me off.
The summit of Kilimanjaro.
Can you finish that? She said, we've got to take the photo and we've got to get off the top of the mountain. And he's still asking me questions.
I had to get it. I mean, there was a gentleman who did it with us who was 71, a Sikh gentleman called Mr. Lau.
He did.
None of them, wow. He's probably like up K2 at the moment, having his breakfast or something like that. He just marched on and on and on and on. It was really,
great experience.
Well, I was going to say, actually, did if you needed to kip off at night in the tent, did you not just let Andy talk to you and just like let him soothe you?
Well, Andy had his own tent. Brian shared a tent.
No, but you could probably hear him through the tent.
Executive tent over there.
That's because nobody would tent with him.
Wise.
Yeah. The worst part of that is 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
They come with a cup of tea and a cup of coffee at 5. Ooh. And then you go for your breakfast at 6. And then you'd set off at 7 o'clock. So it took that long to sort of get prepared before you're going to walk.
There's like monkeys in the trees and stuff like that. And his mate keeps going, how has my life come to this? I've been woken up on a mountain with monkeys jumping above my head. Top experience.
Talk about experience of helping people now. That's what you're doing at the moment, right? With the financial services or the advice, should we say, that because you're actually involved with going into United at the moment.
Well, what it was, Laurie, I kept picking up newspapers and people going bankrupt, and not just footballers, but rugby players, boxers, all these people are going bankrupt, and it's through bad investment and everything. And look, I'm not going to tell people how to invest or anything like that, and neither is my company. But we've got this company called Money.
M-U-N-N-Y, right?
Yeah, M-U, yeah, double-N-Y, yeah, Money. And they do fantastic presentations on all sort of tax affairs, like investing or like leasing, mortgages, all this, leases for cars, or do you buy a car? And what it is, you can educate the lads and make them aware of these things. But I've seen that in the past, even in my days, they're trying to educate you and lead you in the right way. But there's no follow-up. So these people are giving you common sense and hopefully educating you in the tax areas and everything. But then our company, Zentham Sports and HPI, what we're trying to do, we're trying to, if anybody's got a problem, please come to us. We don't charge a commission or anything like that. We do a set fee. So the players or, like the women's team, any of that, rugby, we've got cricketers on board. And what we try to do is give them a business plan. So if you've got a 4-year contract, how much do you want to spend on certain things? Do you want a mortgage? Do you want to buy a house and all that? And we'll give them a bit of advice if they can afford to do that. But if they want to go out and invest in whatever they want to invest, we don't have any say in that. We'll just say, well, we don't feel that it's a right investment. Just be wary of it. And so that's how the companies are working. We're on board with the Premier League, which is great. And the FA are trying to map out a plan of where we go with anybody in the league and educate some of the players and the academies as well, because that's really important. And sometimes if the parents are still have got the kids and the parents need to be educated as well if they're not already, if they don't already know about tax benefits and all this sort of stuff. So that's where the companies are coming from. We just want to help people out there.
I think it's really important that young footballers, often from working class backgrounds, suddenly come into a lot of money, get help, because unfortunately, historically, they've been terribly advised, and there are countless horror stories. And I didn't realise how many there were until during COVID, Andy Cole invited me around to his new flat and just started telling me some of the stories, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And that led to me spending more time on a story for The Athletic than any story I've ever worked on. I probably spoke to 30 different people, maybe 20 of them on the record, big name Premier League footballers, lads who were sold for £5 million, lost all the money. They were financially abused. It's still going on now. Lads who should have been set up for life, got terrible advice, got taken advantage of. I spoke to a lot of footballers who maybe they'd got one contract at a club like Man United, and they bought a flat because the parents said, just buy a flat. And that turned out to be the best investment they ever made, because there was this pressure to change your car every 3 months or to invest in X or Y or Z. Just these lads need help. They get help in training on the training pitch. Yep. I think they need help financially as well, because unfortunately there's loads of horror stories out there, and it has become more mainstream. And I'm glad that it's reached Parliament as well. And there are good people fighting for these players, but it's just a really sad story.
And obviously young players, as Andy's saying, coming into this money in this current climate, the club does offer support, right? All the clubs do, but this is a sort of extra layer, I think, if I'm right in understanding it, to sort of give people tailored advice to their own, specifications, really.
Yeah, they're right.
Just point them in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, Man United have got a good welfare section of the club where they give advice to the players. So if they're after a house, after a car, they'll say that, well, this is a great garage, or this is a great agent who looks after you and doesn't rip you off. So they do that when new players come into the club. They'll make sure that if they want a house, they'll go and show them around the area, take them to the best schools, and if they've got kids, and so they do that. So the club are trying to look after them and that, but the club can only go so far, and they can't reach out in every area. And so that's where we try to come in to help the clubs. We just want to try and help people so that I don't read that they're in the papers and they're bankrupt.
Yeah, well, let's hope it helps the young lads and young ladies who are sports people in the area and across the country. Part of that, you were going into Carrington to speak to the players, and Michael Carrick has been on record to say you're always welcome to be around the first team pitches. So you've been able to watch training a couple of times. Yeah. You're a regular at all the games still in your ambassadorial role watching the team. What have you made of United under Michael Carrick?
No, I think Michael's done a great job. He kept it pretty simple when he came in. You know, he put Harry Maguire back in the team as a centre-half, where I think Harry's our best centre-half. Then Luke Shaw went back to left-back, where I think that's Luke's favourite position. He put Mainoo in to complement Casemiro. And then the forwards have been good buys. Yeah, you know, so they've done well in the first season. You know, so the balance of them is pretty good. But yeah, Michael's nice and calm. I mean, sometimes fans want to see a manager going, I'd like do this, do that.
Did you like that as a player, seeing a manager on the sidelines?
Honestly, you know what? When you see them, I mean, I used to look back and I go, when the manager's shouting, you cannot hear him. Yeah. The fans have got an atmosphere going, and you go, what's he shouting?
Right. Yeah. What was your style when you were managing? Could you keep it together on the touchline? Were you quite calm?
I was fairly calm to a certain degree because, like I say, you can't hear anyway. But if something was very annoying,
you let them know.
Then I'd shout as loud as I could, and you know, and try and rectify what I felt they were doing wrong. So yeah, I think as a manager, you've got to have that little bit of angry side every now and again, so the players know who's in charge.
Yeah, we've seen that a couple of times from Michael so far, certainly in terms of refereeing decisions and some of the questions he got after the Newcastle defeat as well. And that's the thing, week on week, you're learning a little bit more about him. I know the club have got a decision to make, so I don't know how much you want to say about this, but do you feel he could be someone that could do this job? Has he shown enough for you in these weeks to say that he could do it permanently?
Look, I just think at the moment he's done great. I'm not quite sure how many games Michael's been in charge now, but I know that we've only lost 2. So that's good. Yeah. From where we were to where Michael's took us, the only thing Michael's got to do now is finish off the job and get us in the Champions League. And if he gets us in the Champions League, there's no reason why Man United cannot give him the job and at least give him a go for a couple of years. Because normally the UK-based managers, they don't get a chance at the big clubs. I've always said, if you want a great team, you've got to sign great players. If you want an average team, you sign average players. And if you sign poor players, you get relegated.
And do you think it changes for Michael at all if he gets the permanent job from being interim to a permanent manager? That must be a bit of a shift maybe, or do you think he can just carry on in the way that he's been going?
No, well, his backroom staff seem as if they're doing a really good job as well. So Michael's brought the right people in. And then it's for Michael to sit down with the hierarchy at the club. And if they are going to improve the squad and we're in the Champions League, then they've got to work together and make sure that they bring quality players in, you know, to improve us as a team and as a squad. And I think last summer they did do that. We brought in some quality players, and so that's what we've got to do again.
Steve Holland probably watched you playing for Manchester United, because Andy told us a story that he used to stand on the Stretford end and watch the team. So he's probably watched your United, I imagine.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to argue with him on his stats.
Well,
everything.
You can if you like.
Johnny Woodgate probably watched his Boro team because he was a Boro fan, wasn't he?
I mean, yeah, he was. I think he was a schoolboy at Boro, and then he went to Leeds. Right. So, I mean, that was disappointing for me when I was coach there, that somebody told me that he'd gone to Leeds. Yeah. Because from schoolboy, I had the people who were in charge of the academy, they did really well. We brought some really good players through, like Stuart Down and these sort of lads. And there was about 6 or 7 of them who made the first team. But unfortunately, from where we signed them at 13, and then Steve McLaren took over from me. And to be fair to Steve, he gave them a chance in the first team. And there was a lot of good players in that team.
That was an incredible Boro team though, Brian, wasn't it? I mean, to be around that club at that time, with Juninho coming in, with I can keep listening, Fabrizio Ravanelli, Christian Carambo, I mean, just Emerson, unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was going through the team earlier. What was the clash of culture like? Because for every Emerson and Ravanelli, you've got like a Cox, and you've got sort of some very Steve Vickers, some very old school English players. Nigel Pearson, the captain, I think at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I had some good, solid British players to go around them. And the one thing the boys from even the first year that I went into Boro, what they did, they worked really hard for each other and great attitude. So when I brought in real quality like Juninho, Emerson, like Ravanelli, those sort of players, they'd express themselves, but they'd work hard. But it matched really well because we just had that little bit of extra quality when those players came in. I mean, my dream front three at Boro was I wanted Alan Boxix because I'd set him up as well. So I wanted Alan on the left, playing 4-3-3, Juninho on the right, and then Ravanelli through the middle.
To be able to bring those players to Middlesbrough, though, I mean, what did they make of the North East?
You must have some charm, Brian.
Yeah.
He had Yarm. That's a nice place.
Nice.
No,
place,
you know what? In Middlesbrough, there is a part of Middlesbrough that has a lot of Brazilians live there. So I was shocked when Juninho told me that he'd met a load of Brazilians and, his family were enjoying it there. I'm thinking, I've never even heard of a Brazilian being in Middlesbrough.
You didn't get down to a bit of samba.
Yeah.
And then the other coaches, the only one we've not mentioned is Johnny Evans, who's Brian's neighbour. And Johnny says Brian and Denise are terrible neighbours. We're always having parties. Anyway.
He's right.
Yeah. Could I ask you, Brian, obviously being a manager yourself, and knowing Manchester United as intimately as you do, what do you think it takes to manage Manchester United? Like, it's a different era now. There's a head coach rather than a manager. But, is it that you need to be a big personality and be able to get these players in unison, or is it tactics?
You've got to delegate really well because you can't do all the jobs by yourself. You've got to trust in your coaches and everything, but they've got to lay out what you want, as a manager. The rest of it, which is why I'd encourage to take Michael on if he gets us in the Champions League. He knows what Man United's all about. Some managers come in and they don't realise how big the club is, not just in here or in Europe, but all around the world. You've got to cope with publicity in Asia, in America, because we've had a lot of main sponsors from America. So you've got to understand sometimes certain things that you've got to do with your players without tiring them out. So it does help if you have played for Man United.
And just, I mean, on Michael, do you think that he's got that? Because he's a calm guy, right? He's been a bit pointed in press conferences, as you said, about refereeing decisions, but he tries not to go towards the headlines, shall we say. And I think you managed teams against him a couple of times when he was a player, so I don't know if you had many interactions then or when you got to know him when you were looking at the club. But in terms of his personality, do you think he can handle it on a weekly basis when you've got Champions League, when you've got transfers?
Well, for me, you look at him, he's a little bit like Casemiro. He read the game brilliant. He was a great passer. He hardly ever gave the ball away. So he had a calming presence where you had Scholesy and like Giggsy.
Anderson.
Yeah.
There's a few crazy midfielders around the time. Yeah.
So some of them are so aggressive. and everything. The way the
Scholes ever snapped you in training?
No, he was quite sensible in training, but that's the right way around, because I've seen players at United and they're very aggressive in training with the teammates, and yet you go out in a match and you go, where's the aggression gone? You know, it's okay doing it to your mates, but when you're playing against opposition who are maybe tough, are you going to be tough when you're in the game where it really matters?
You think he's got the temperament then? You think that is actually the best way to do it, to be calm and play things down?
I do, because I've seen him lose his temper. So you've got to have that in it as a manager. But I like his calmness, and you know, when United have been a goal down, when he's been manager, he's not afraid to change it around if he thinks that's the best way to go. And the one thing, you know, for me, looking at United when you're sort of going, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that. The last manager, I've never seen a manager change centre-halves so much when nobody's injured, because for me, they're the two most important players. Your centre-halves to get a great understanding together, and then they'll be more solid.
Okay, well, we've done an hour, Brian, so I think we probably took up enough of your time, but it's been an absolute privilege to have you with us, so thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, for listening. We'll be back soon on Talk of the Devils. See you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too, and click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Carl Anker and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels at TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.